Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope your day is going great. Mine has been awesome, and today we're going to be finally continuing the one trade every single team in the Overwatch League needs to make in this offseason in order to improve for the next. I know you guys really wanted to see this yesterday, but unfortunately, due to the news, Atlanta Guangwu, or I don't know how to say it, guys. People have been typing in my comments telling me how to pronounce it, and everybody is saying a different way. There's Guangzhou, there's Guangzhou, Guangwu, I don't know, guys. Anyways, though, so in the first video, if you haven't seen it, I uploaded it a couple days ago. I will link it down below, but we covered the Shanghai Dragons, Florida Mayhem, Dallas Fuel, San Francisco Shock, Seoul Dynasty, Houston Outlaws, and Philadelphia Fusion, with the trades that they need to make throughout this offseason in order to improve next season. If you don't want to go watch that video, I will do a quick summary. So for the 0 and 40 Shanghai Dragons, obviously they can make many changes, but I do feel like their weakest point is their supports. I know they added Sky at the end of the season around stage 3, but still, it just wasn't what they needed. I feel like every other position was an actual upgrade. As for Sky, I feel like he just came in and kept the same level of play that Free Fill and Altering had. So Shanghai needs to work on their supports. Moving on to the Florida Mayhem, they were actually very similar to the Shanghai Dragons. Throughout the season, they made little upgrades here and there. They added some DPS players, they added a main tank, and it got a little bit better. But where they are really weak is the supports. Zupe and Zebosai, I think they need an upgrade there. So Florida Mayhem and Shanghai Dragons both looking to upgrade their supports in this offseason. Now moving on to the Dallas Fuel. This one was definitely a little hard to decide what they needed to do in the offseason. I figured the best move they could possibly make is trying to get a lot for effect. Now, I know he's had attitude issues in the past, and that might bring his value down, but I still feel like maybe a trade with Seoul Dynasty, they could get like Munchkin, Wakid, or a combination of two really good players just for effect, because Tracer is something Seoul Dynasty really needed throughout the season that they never got. Could possibly work, but Dallas Fuel was a hard one. Moving on to the number 9 San Francisco Shock. They also made a lot of changes, I'd say, throughout the season. Obviously, they had Sinatra and Super on the roster from the start, but they didn't get to play until they turned 18. So it was kind of like a roster change to me, and then they added all these Koreans, Choi, Architect, and they're sitting at a 12-man roster. I felt like something they could do is possibly trade away all of their subs that they didn't really play. So we got Nomi, IDDQD, and Dak, who probably won't get much more playtime throughout the season, and maybe they can tie in like Super and trade those 4 players away from somebody who is insane like Fisher, throw some money in. You never know who you can get if you don't try, right? With a combination of all those players, Super's pretty good, along with Dak and then all those other guys. They could get something nice, but they definitely are a hard team to decide what they do need. Anyways, let's move on to the number 8 Seoul Dynasty. Now, I know personally I was really disappointed with Miro's play, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were, and Seoul Dynasty, they straight up just need a good main tank. Yeah, Cookie was decent, but he wasn't like a superstar. He was just average. He never really brought that level of play that Miro did back in Season 2, Season 3 of Apex. And obviously, I don't know what happened to Miro through this season. It was just awful. He fell so far behind. They need to go for Fisher, 100%. He already expressed he wants to be there, so that should be their target. Moving on to the Houston Outlaws. Now, this one's very simple as well. Throughout the season, they struggled with Tracer play. It was the reason, in my opinion, they didn't make the overall playoffs, so they need to pick up a strong, flexible Tracer player over the offseason. Now, Lynxer is amazing, but it makes absolutely no sense to have Jake, Arhan, and Clockwork all sitting as your other 3 DPS players. Having one of them is fine. Keep Jake, he's good, he can flex decently, he does good on the Junkrat when it's in meta, but none of them can play Tracer, and Tracer is just always meta. Sure, we didn't see it as much in Stage 4 or as much in the playoffs, but it will come back eventually, 100%. Very similar to the D.Va. Now let's go to move on to the last one, which was the Philadelphia Fusion, and they did make it all the way to the final, and their roster is actually very interesting. They have a lot of pieces that they could make moves with. For example, they have somebody like Shadowburn on their roster who would be very valuable to a team who needs a flex DPS player who can really control the game on Genji and Pharah. Not only that, Shadowburn also shown he could flex to Sombra, Widowmaker, and other random things throughout this season as well. The problem was EQO is a god, and he's a little bit better, so Shadowburn sat on the bench. Philadelphia Fusion could tie Shadowburn with somebody like Sado, Fraggy, trade with the LA Gladiators, and get Fisher. This would improve their roster so much because let's be honest, Sado and Fraggy they weren't the best main tanks, and this team really did lack a superstar in that role. Just think about it, guys. Carpe, EQO, Fisher, Neptuno, and Hoppa/Poco. That's insane. I also think they could possibly upgrade over Boombox. Who knows what they're going to do with that? He underperformed near the playoffs and the stage 4, so we'll see what happens. But I think they need to go for Fisher as well. And now that leads us to the final 5 teams, and we're going to go ahead and start this video off with the London Spitfire. Now, obviously, if you just won the championship, you probably won't want to change anything with your roster. And it actually is very hard to find somebody that they need to replace or improve over. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about Birdring. Obviously, this guy was devastating in stage 1. Definitely played at an MVP level, and if he would have kept that play up, he would have been considered one of the MVPs. Now, personally, I always thought Prophet was the team carry, and he would do most of the work. Yeah, Birdring, he did a ton during stage 1, and it was pretty even with Prophet, but throughout the season, Prophet was definitely the dominant DPS player on this roster. And I do feel like, say somebody like Carpe replaced Birdring, who in my opinion is a little bit better than Birdring and 100 times more consistent than Birdring, this team would be incredible. Now, I know it looked like Birdring got the best of Carpe in the final, but let's be honest, that had to do with the fact that Gesture, Fury, Prophet were all over EQO and Carpe. The DPS players of the Philadelphia Fusion just had no space. None at all. London Spitfire took that away from them, so it looked like Birdring outshined him. But I still feel like Carpe played pretty decent for the situation. And if he were on this team instead of Birdring, I feel like they would have never slumped at all. Because in my opinion, Carpe and Prophet were both the most consistent DPS players of the entire season. I couldn't imagine them two put together along with Gesture. Oh, this team would be insane. Now, I don't know how they can go out and get him. Maybe they trade Birdring and Closer or Nuss, so I don't know. It would definitely be a mission to go out and get Carpe. Somebody else they could possibly look at would be like Pine, maybe even Flower from the New York Excelsior. Those are 2 players where one of them could want some money, have more play time, because London Spitfire, they only have a 7-man roster. Everybody on their roster gets to play, besides Nuss and Closer who swap out sometimes. So in my opinion, that would be the best upgrade they can possibly do. I feel like everybody on this roster has proved themselves though, and it's really hard to upgrade it. So that's going to be London Spitfire, and now let's move on to the 4th ranked team, which is the Los Angeles Gladiators. And now these guys are definitely in an interesting spot as well. They added Void, Fisher, and Silk Thread mid-season, adding more depth to their roster. But at the end of the season, the team completely broke down and they lost their star player who pretty much turned the franchise around. And now it seems like Fisher is going to be traded. So obviously the LA Gladiators, they need to find a main tank. I don't know if Remix is going to be able to step up to the plate. He looked pretty decent in that first set, but as time went on, London Spitfire, they dominated them. And it's really hard to say where Remix stands right now. How good can he be? How hard he's been working? I honestly have no idea. He could be great. He could be average, and you just don't want average. So I feel like the Los Angeles Gladiators definitely need to go out and look for another main tank. I wouldn't cut Remix or anything. Who knows? He could be the guy, but you need another backup 100%. I would be looking to trade with other teams. You have Fisher on your roster. Go get Fraggy. I mentioned this in the other video. Maybe Philadelphia Fusion and Los Angeles Gladiators could do a trade because Fraggy, he played with Big Goose and Shaz when he was back on Gigante. They won European contenders. That could be a good mesh, and it's more of a NA team. Everybody kind of speaks English here besides Fisher and Void. Fisher's gone, so it would just be Void and Asher. So we'll see what happens with the LA Gladiators. They need a main tank though. That needs to be their objective. Everything else looks pretty good for them. Hydration, Surefour, they all played good. Bishu, the backline. LA Gladiators is in a good spot for next season. Now moving on to the Boston Uprising. This is an interesting one because the Boston Uprising coming into the season were not going to be good. At least according to everybody on Reddit, you know, just everybody. Nobody thought they would be good. Well, all of a sudden, they were a pretty decent team. And if it wasn't for Dreamcasper, you know, being a creep, a pedophile, and oh my god, don't even want to talk about him. But if it wasn't for him being that, they would have been damn good. Because Dreamcasper, despite all the crap he did and how much I hate him and we all hate him, he was good. There's no denying that. And he helped this roster a lot. The combination of him and Striker was insane. And that's why they started to go on that run. And if it wasn't for him getting in trouble, I think these guys could have went deeper in the playoffs. I think they could have beat the Philadelphia Fusion, which they almost did with mistakes. But this leads us to the player that I think they need to get rid of or upgrade over, which is Mistakes. And it's unfortunate because he was thrown into a kind of crappy situation where he needed to adapt mid-season and learn a bunch of heroes randomly, but as time went on, it was very clear that he wasn't going to be playing at the same level as Dreamcasper, and not even close. The guy really got destroyed on Widowmaker. This forced the team to put Striker on Widowmaker, and surprisingly, Striker was amazing at Widowmaker. He's good at Tracer, he's good at Junkrat, he's been good at everything he's played so far, so he is a star player. Him, Gamsu, Nako, No, those guys are great. Even Calyx is good. Despite him dying a lot, he kind of did mess up their playoff hopes. He was still pretty consistent over the season, and they've always been like that. Boston Uprising, I feel like Calyx has kind of been a bait on their team. They let other teams go for him while they dive the other back line, and Gamsu and Striker usually end up carrying. But I feel like if they upgraded Mistakes, they could go to being a top 4, top 3 team next season. So that's going to be it for the Boston Uprising. Let's go ahead and move on to the LA Valiant now. Now, the LA Valiant are another interesting one. They picked up a ton of players and got rid of a ton of players during the regular season. Right now, they're sitting at 12 players, and honestly, we haven't seen half of them play, besides maybe one game. Finzi, KSF, Numlocked, Izayeki, probably butchered that, and Verbo. That's 5 players on this roster who hardly touched the stage. Sure, some of them maybe got 1 or 2 or 3 games. Most of them got none. So they have some room with their roster where they can make moves, possibly look for trades. Then we look at the star players. We have Kariv, Bunny, Fate, Custa, Space, and Soon. These guys are great. Oh, and I forgot Agilities. I don't know how, but those guys are great. Agility, Soon, when they're clicking, they're really clicking. Soon was a little bit inconsistent. He started to rise in stage 4. That's when they went on their 9-1 run. Unfortunately, in the playoffs, they did run up against the London Spitfire. Honestly, I'm not sure what they need to upgrade in here. They could use more consistent DPS players. Space was great. Fate was also great. They didn't have the best playoff run. Custa and Kariv have been great. I feel like they just ran into a brick wall of London Spitfire, which everybody else did as well. So we don't really know if they were the second best team, the third best team at the end of the day. I feel like they could possibly get another strong DPS player. Right now they have Bunny and Soon sharing the Tracer duties. They didn't really share that much at the end of the season though. I feel like adding another deadly hit scan to the roster would be good because at the end of the day, Soon and Bunny, they're both Tracers at heart. I know Soon got pretty good at the Widowmaker at the end, but if they added somebody like Pine to their roster or Flower, that would help a lot. And it would give a break to Agility as well because Flower, he can flex a ton. He could even play the Pharah. He can play those projectile roles. So we'll have to see what the LA Valiant do here. I think getting another DPS player is their best bet. And last but not least, we have New York Excelsior. They have a 9-man roster right now, and they were just the most dominant team over the course of the season. Everybody thought they were going to win, at least be in the final. They didn't make it there. They didn't win a playoff game. They got destroyed by Philadelphia Fusion, and here we are. What upgrades do they need to make? Well, first, they have Flower coming in, and that really does solve a lot of issues, and a big reason why they lost was because Sabiolbe just could not flex. All he could play was Tracer. If they had somebody like Flower, probably could have flexed to the Hanzo, probably could have flexed to the Brigida, him tied with Pine. That would have been a deadly combo. I know Libero underperformed a little bit too. Him and Sabiolbe, questionable performances in the playoffs. Pine did good. As for the main tanks, we start to talk about Mano and Janus. I think they need to start cutting it down to just one main tank. I think they swapped their main tanks too much. I don't know if Janus should be playing as much as he does. He's good, Mano's good, but I think Mano's just a little bit better, and it feels like the team synergizes more with him. So with the offseason coming, the addition of Flower is going to be great. Other than that, I don't even know where these guys need to upgrade because they were so good for the entire season. They just need that flex player, and that flex player is probably going to be Flower. I really do see him fitting into the roster. I'd say maybe 2-3 months ago during stages 2 and 1, New York Excelsior, they really didn't need any additions. Like, they were perfect. But now, it's looking like, oh, they do need that flex player. Sabiolbe, I don't know how much he practiced those heroes going from the regular season to the playoffs. He just didn't look good on them. And that was a huge reason they lost. And that's pretty much it. I think Flower's going to add that depth. If he doesn't, then they need to get another flex player. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know if you agree or disagree with these changes I think the team should go for during the offseason. Do not forget, leave a comment down below telling me what videos I should continue to make throughout the offseason. I'm thinking of doing the top 10 worst players in the league. I know it'd be controversial and brutal, but I still think it would be interesting and a fun video to make. So let me know if you guys want to see that. And that's pretty much it for today. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like and subscribe to my channel for more daily content. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.